Chairs No Waiting, episode number 539, Mayberry Actors. Two Chairs No Waiting is brought to you by the folks over at weaversdepartmentstore.com. Drop by Weavers and check it out. They got the Mayberry Patrol Car license plate. That's right, you can get a JL327 license plate for your very own car, or you can hang it on the wall in the house or maybe in your barn. They get you a JL327 license plate over at Weavers. And don't miss the 2020 Andy Griffith Show wall calendar, now shipping from Weavers. Head over to weaversdepartmentstore.com and check it out. Two Chairs No Waiting is also brought to you by donations from listeners like you. Executive producer of episode number 539 is Randy Vincent. Thank you, Randy. Yay, I need a clapping sound, don't I? Thank you, Randy, for your support at Two Chairs No Waiting. I'm Alan Newsom, your host for Two Chairs, and also run imayberry.com, do the websites. My wife runs Weaver's Department Store, and I'm just basically all around a big Mayberry fan like you. So to this episode, what we're wanting to talk about is Mayberry actors. Now, that's kind of a broad topic, I suppose. But it's about actors with Andy Griffith Show and things you may or may not know about them. I thought it'd be kind of fun to just roll through some things just to give you, I don't know, a little bit of fun. And as we always do, I try to get out and get some background music from the VW Boys. So let's see if I can get that playing for us. Oh, that's fast music. I like it. The Dixie Breakdown by the VW Boys. So what we're going to talk about is Mayberry actors. So I'm going to cover a few things about several of the actors, and then we're going to hear from Randy Turner for This Week in Mayberry History. So we should be able to have a good bit of fun and enjoy ourselves here in Mayberry. I hope you are ready to go. So let's start off with, now you may or may not know this one. I'm pretty sure you know who this kid is. His name, well, it's Ronnie Howard. Ronnie Howard's his name. There he is. Ron Howard. He wasn't yet Ron at the time, by the way. He was a son of actor Rance Howard. I believe all of us, most Mayberry fans already know that. He had been acting in one-shot roles since 1956. Did you know that? So he'd done various television shows like Johnny Ringo. He'd been in that. The Twilight Zone. He was on there. And he was on some little show you may have heard of, Dennis the Menace. You ever heard of that? He was on Cheyenne. He was on Pete and Gladys. And he was in The Music Man as well. So Ron had done a good bit of acting before he got on the Andy Griffith Show. So as young as he was, what was he, 5 years old when he started? So, my goodness, he must have been a baby in some of these shots because is that right? He was 5 or 7 and he started in 56. Andy Griffith Show started in 60. So 4 years. My goodness, he was little when he started. So anyway, of course, then he did some other guest roles during his time on the Andy Griffith Show as well. But of course he did the pilot on the Danny Thomas Show, but that doesn't, I guess that's the Andy Griffith Show. Anyway, I thought you'd find that kind of interesting. Now, Don Knotts, we all know all about Don. We know him. Don, he was from Morgantown, as we've talked about, Morgantown, West Virginia. And he had been on the radio and in the stage in New York. And he met Andy Griffith, by the way, in New York when they were doing No Time for Sergeants. You knew that, or might have known that. But that was on Broadway. That's how Don met him. Well, Don had been cast previously, before he started on the Andy Griffith Show. He had been on a soap opera called Search for Tomorrow. Now, some previous episode of the podcast, I showed a video clip of this. The only video clip I can find of Don's time on Search for Tomorrow, he was basically knocked out and asleep in a bed. That's the only one I could ever find. Now, as part of that, Don also had been in an ensemble cast on NBC's Sunday night show called The Steve Allen Show. And Don had gained all kinds of notoriety at the time on the Steve Allen's, doing wild comedy sketches and stuff. But before that, even, he had been on the radio as as a character on the radio, and that's who Andy remembered him as. But he was on the Steve Allen Show, and appeared there with like Lou Nye, Tom Poston, Dayton Allen, Pat Harrington Jr. He was on One Day at a Time. You remember him? Yeah, he was on there. And Bill Dana. They were all friends of his. And he'd played that Man on the Street sketch. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but Don did that, where he was really nervous and did that really nervous attitude thing he had, which he did every once in a while as Barney as well. But yeah, he had been on the radio, as I said before that. So Don had already had a career as well. Of course, you had heard about him learning as a ventriloquist as a young man. That's how he learned to do stuff. Now, did you know anything about Aunt Bee, like Frances Bavier? You know about her? Well, she had begun acting in 1930s. That's when she started in films. She wasn't a huge name, but she had worked in stage and in films at the time. But prior to Mayberry, she'd been a member of a cast of a 1957 sitcom, The Eve Arden Show. Not Eve Allen, that's Steve Allen. The Eve Arden Show. She was a member of that cast back in 1957. And a lot of people forget that Frances Bavier had already starred. She'd already been a co-star in her own sitcom. And it was called It's a Great Life. And it ran from 1954 to 56 on NBC. It centered around the residents of this boarding home where Aunt Bee, Frances, she played the house's owner. She owned the boarding home. Her name was Amy Morgan. And, it was pretty much, she was similar to Aunt Bee in that show. So she did a lot of roles like that. And she looked like Aunt Bee even in 1954. So she still had that look. But that was a great show. It was called, again, It's a Great Life. You can get them on DVD, evidently, because I found a picture of the thing, and it actually shows starring Frances Bavier. So I thought that was interesting. Now, one of my favorites, of course, is Howard McNear. He played Floyd Lawson, of course, on the Andy Griffith Show. And Frances, of course, was Aunt Bee. I don't know if I said that. But he'd done a lot of film work, but he made his name, the way he was best known before he started doing film work, was as Doc Adams on the CBS radio version of Gunsmoke, which starred William Conrad. Some of you may remember Jake and the Fat Man and some of those movies. He was Matt Dillon. And I should go ahead and we'll mention him later, but Chester also had a Mayberry connection, and we'll talk to him. Chester on Gunsmoke. He walks like Chester on Gunsmoke. Yeah. Well, he has a Mayberry connection, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes here. But McNear he also was in a bunch of different television shows and things. It did a lot of radio. If you listen to old time radio, which I love listening to old time radio, you'll hear him in all kinds of different roles on the radio. He was on Peter Gunn in 1958 through 60. He was on that. It was a TV show he did. Peter Gunn, where he was a antique dealer named Charles Quimby. So there's another little role you can see. He was in Elvis movies and everything as well. But Howard McNear, Floyd the Barber, he did all kinds of voice work on Hanna-Barbera cartoons and so much more. But it was, man, what an amazing guy he was. Eleanor Donahue, Miss Ellie. We all love Miss Ellie. Well, Miss Ellie, of course, was the pharmacist there in the Andy Griffith Show. And, of course, Andy Taylor's girlfriend, at least the first one, was Ellie Walker. That was her. And she left after the first season. But she had made her name, and maybe you've seen this show, Father Knows Best. On Father Knows Best, she played Betty Anderson, the daughter of the lead character. She was the eldest of Robert Young's and Jane Wyatt's. That's who played the mom and the dad on the Father Knows Best. She was the oldest of the children. There were 3 children, a boy and 2 girls, and she was Betty. And she also had acted on things when she was very little as well. So she had been in some movies and things, but she was really best known as coming off of Father Knows Best. Let's see, who's next? Hal Smith. Now that's Otis Campbell, if you don't know his name. Probably most of you do, but Hal Smith is his name. He had done all kinds of roles and guest roles in the 50s on sitcoms and things like that. He did voiceovers on cartoons. He did a lot. He was the voice of Winnie the Pooh after Sterling Holloway quit doing the Winnie the Pooh voice. Hal took over and did it for a while. He did Owl on Winnie the Pooh as well. He did him. And he appeared on things like The Brady Bunch. This was after the Andy Griffith Show, but he appeared on The Brady Bunch as, I forgot what, he was the king of something. And he was also on there as Santa Claus on one episode. So that was pretty cool. But he continued to do voice work and a lot of voice work. And he worked with Margaret Carey, by the way, Bess Muggins herself, and the live action model for Tinkerbell. He worked with her a lot doing voiceover work as well. And he did a lot of voiceover work until just right before he passed away in 1994. Now, Howard Morris, Ernest T. Bass, he was a TV icon from the 1950s. So he had been around a long time. He was part of the ensemble cast of Sid Caesar's pioneering sketch comedy program, Your Show of Shows. Wow, what a great show that one is, too. The skits are absolutely amazing if you can see them. Some of those are available on YouTube if you want to go look for them. Your Show of Shows. He was a classically trained, believe it or not, Howard Morris. He worked alongside three comic giants on that show, Sid Caesar himself, Mel Brooks, and Carl Reiner, as well as Imogene Coca. So, wow, what an amazing cast that was. And you may not know, but I believe a lot of you will, that he directed 4 episodes of the Andy Griffith Show as well. There you go. So Howard McNear, a great man. I enjoyed getting to know him and be around him because of my being Floyd the Barber. Some of you may not know that I perform as Floyd the Barber at events and things throughout the country, mostly in the Southeast. But because of that, I was able to work with him several times, and he was always super nice to me. Super nice guy. So next up, let's talk about Betty Lynn a little bit. So that's Thelma Lou, Barney's girl. Well, Thelma Lou, Betty Lynn, she had been contracted as a player at the 20th Century Fox theater or movie studio, and a series regular on the 1953 through 54 sitcom that was called Where's Raymond? I've never seen an episode of that. I'd love to see it. It was starring Ray Bolger. Wasn't he on... he was the Cowardly Lion, right? On The Wizard of Oz. And she appeared in a variety of roles before joining the Andy Griffith Show as the cast as Barney's girlfriend. She was on there from 61 to 65, by the way, until Barney left the show and Don Knotts left and went on to do movie work. Really, Thelma Lou couldn't stay in town or didn't stay in town. We never saw her anymore. But Betty also appeared in movies with the likes of Betty Davis. She told me stories before about helping teach Marilyn Monroe how to do a particular little dance step that she ended up teaching her. So she knew Marilyn Monroe. Betty is a wonderful lady. We'll be seeing her at the Mayberry meetup this coming weekend at the Andy Griffith Museum, getting some autographs. So it's great. I'm looking forward to seeing Betty this weekend. All right, next up, we talk about George Lindsay, Goober himself, Goober Pile. Did you know he had a bachelor's degree from what is now the University of North Alabama? It was Florence Teachers College at the time, but he had a BA from there. Before he jumped into acting during his time when he was in the Air Force. He had done various guest roles on various TV shows and things, including roles on 2 episodes of the dramatic anthology series, The Alfred Hitchcock Hour, which I love. And he revealed a considerably wider range as an actor in those episodes. One of them was portraying an individual with diminished mental abilities, and another was he was playing a blackmailing cab driver who gets murdered for his trouble. Anyway, George did several things like that. If you get a chance and you're watching those, look for those episodes with George in them and enjoy them because they're pretty amazing. One of them in particular actually has James Best in it with him. So you'll see James Best and George. The Jar is what it's called. And I believe that's an Alfred Hitchcock. Could be a Twilight Zone, but I think it's Alfred Hitchcock. Watch for those, but it's called The Jar. Helen Crump, Anita Corso. She did a ton of guest spots on episodes of various TV series in the 1950s and in the early 60s, including Death Valley Days, Hennessy, Zane Grey Theater, and Johnny Ringo. You know, Johnny Ringo was a great song. Anyway, but her first significant role was appearing in the 1955 low-rent horror flick. You may have heard of it, The Blob. Yeah, that's right. Helen's in The Blob. Did you realize that? She starred in it along with then unknown Steve McQueen. Later, she continued guest roles on any other number of sitcoms and dramatic TV series, including, of course, Return to Mayberry, the 1986 Andy Griffith reunion movie. And she was on 7 different times guest spots on Matlock. Whoa. Yep, she's on Matlock as well. Parley Bear. Now, I talked about him a little earlier, Mayor Stoner. Well, as I mentioned, he was on Gunsmoke. So he played Matt Dillon's deputy, Chester Good, on the radio version. Hello, Mr. Dillon. Yeah, he was Chester Good on Gunsmoke, right beside Matt Dillon himself. He was the deputy. He was a veteran character actor, also known for appearances on TV shows like the original Dragnet. He was on it. He was on The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet. He was on there. And he was on The Addams Family. You know, I know that's a high point in your career, but it was. I love The Addams Family, and it's fun to see. There's an episode he's on where Lurch actually brings him into the house. You know, he's carrying him. I say bringing. He is holding him in his arms and bringing him into the house. So Parley Bear, great man. There's a great episode of the podcast or a couple of episodes where he talks about some of his old time radio stuff. I definitely encourage you to head over there and check those out. He talks about Lum and Abner and so many things that he was on. Of course, he was the Keebler elf. I didn't mention that later on. He was the voice of Ernie, the Keebler elf. So there you go. Folks, that's just some of the amazing things that some of the actors from the Andy Griffith Show have done over their career. And I hope you enjoyed just that little bit of walk down memory lane that we just did. And now we're going to head over and hear from our roving reporter, Randy Turner.
Welcome to This Week in Mayberry History, a report by special correspondent Randy Turner of the Gomer and Cooper Pyle Comic Book Literary Guild of the Mayberry Historical Society.
Ken Lynch tended to play detectives and people in law enforcement, and his visits in Mayberry were no exception. Ken was born in Cleveland, Ohio on July the 15th, 1910. While he eventually became best known for his work in television and film, he began his career replacing one of the lead actors in an old-time radio show called The Bishop and the Gargoyle. The series covered the exploits of a crime-fighting duo, a retired bishop and a convict nicknamed the Gargoyle. The convict was played from the show's inception in 1938 until 1940 by Milton Herman. Ken made his debut when he replaced Herman and continued to play the Gargoyle for 2 more years. When that series ended, Ken hopped over to the new serial Hop Harrigan, where he played the title character's friend, Tank Tinker, in the World War II aviation adventure series. Ken appeared in many other radio shows, including guest starring in Gunsmoke with Howard McNear and Parley Bear. In 1947, Ken made his film debut with an uncredited small role in Gentleman's Agreement. 2 years later, he made his television debut in an episode of Suspense. In 1950, he won his first regular role, playing a police lieutenant in The Plainclothesman, but with a unique angle. The show was shot from Ken's character's point of view, so his face was never shown, other than in one 1952 episode where his face was in a flashback. Ken played the series lead for all of the show's 178 episodes. Ken's look is often described as stone-faced, and he had a distinctive, raspy voice that made him perfect for police officer characters, though he did occasionally play other types. After The Plainclothesman ended, Ken's next appearance was in an episode of The Honeymooners, playing a police officer. He played the recurring character Pablo 4 times in Zorro during a time when shows were not as particular about trying to cast actors of the same race as the characters they were portraying. He played recurring characters in 2 1960 and 1961 TV series, The Tall Man, featuring highly fictionalized versions of Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, and in the detective series Checkmate. And in 1960, he also appeared for the first time in Mayberry. The Andy Griffith Show had a recurring theme of Andy's basic goodness and country common sense winning out over arrogant city slicker types. The very first time this was seen was in The Manhunt, when Captain Barker of the State Police, played by Ken, ignored Andy's advice about setting up roadblocks on the back roads. 2 years later, Ken was with the State Bureau of Investigation, asking Andy to stay out of their way, saying, "I suppose you've got plenty of other things to keep you busy, chicken thieves and whatnot." Ken was not quite as abrasive in his latter 2 appearances, playing an FBI agent with the decoy gold truck, and in a color episode, Inspector Rogers of the Highway Patrol concerned Andy could not handle his duties as sheriff while also running a laundromat. Ken also played similar characters 5 times in Gomer Pyle USMC. Ken remained a busy character actor, appearing in multiple episodes as different characters in series such as Gunsmoke, Bonanza, The FBI, The Virginian, and even All in the Family. He played the recurring character Sergeant Grover in the 1970s police drama McCloud, and he even appeared in the occasional science fiction series, such as Star Trek and Battlestar Galactica. While television was his mainstay, Ken also worked in film. He appeared in movies such as Alfred Hitchcock's North by Northwest and Otto Preminger's Anatomy of a Murder. While Ken always stayed busy, he recognized the uncertainty of a paycheck when not involved as a series regular. In the early 70s, Ken bought a flower shop in North Hollywood and studied floral design. He later said that his work in television and film helped in his side business, as it was similar to ordering flowers to be used on a movie set. After more than 4 decades in entertainment, Ken retired from acting in 1983. He passed away at the age of 79 in 1990. Well, that's it for this week. As always, thanks for listening, and remember to take Andy's advice and go out there and act like somebody.
Wow. Thank you, Randy. Thank you for that amazing report. If you want to make sure you don't miss any of the great things that Randy's doing on the internet related to the Andy Griffith Show, send him an email at turnersgrade@gmail.com, turnersgrade@gmail.com, and he'll make sure you're notified of anything he's putting out, and you'll be able to get it. So thanks again, Randy, for that great report. I always appreciate him doing that. All kinds of information I would never have known about. So today, whenever you're listening to this, you have been given all kinds of Mayberry information. about the actors and actresses from the Andy Griffith Show. And hopefully just something will stick in your mind so that, eventually you'll remember it. I'll have to listen to this podcast over and over to be able to remember the things I told you about this evening. So folks, hey, I really do appreciate it. Now, if you are coming to the Mayberry meetup, we got 152 people coming. So if you're not interested in this, we're basically done. I'm going to be talking at the end, but we got 152 people coming to the Mayberry meetup at the Mayberry Motor Inn in Mount Airy. So if you're not able to stay, because the Motor Inn can't hold that many people, if you're not able to stay at the Motor Inn, you can come and you can stay, you can park there. There should be plenty of parking, but try not to park in the actual spots for the guest, so like the parking spots that are assigned to the guest parking outside their doors. Try to park along the roads. There should be, there's an entrance road and there's several areas you can park along the sides of the road so that you don't block the entrances, and the roads are fairly long. So you should be able to park and be close to where everybody is as the meetup continues. So just try to be nice to the guests. All the guests should be us, Mayberry people. I think we filled up the entire hotel, the Motor Inn, but I know there are a lot of people staying at other locations as well. So, all right. So if you're coming, I want to remind you to bring a portable radio if you can. We're going to be able to transmit the audio signal out to the world. It'll be filling up this great big hall here, and it'll just be reverberating if everybody brings a radio. Not everybody, but bring a portable one if you can that's got batteries or something like that, because there's not that many plugs, nowhere to plug them in really. So bring some portable radios, and we'll be transmitting the audio signal for the episodes out to the area right there. So you'll be able to sit and listen wherever you're sitting. As long as you can see the screen, you'll be able to hear if you have a little radio. Bring a lawn chair. Make sure you bring your lawn chair with you or something to sit in. And I think that's about it. I think everything else is ready. Everybody that has been signed up to come to the meetup, I have sent emails to, and you should have information. I've got a way to be able to text everybody and give them more information. So it's going to be good. We got this weekend coming up. So those that can't come, I'll be trying to do some live reports on Facebook. So if you'll follow the 2 Chairs No Waiting Facebook page at facebook.com/2chairs, you should be able to hear from me there and see maybe some reports of what's going on over the weekend. Okay. All right, guys, that is all I have for you this evening. I'm looking forward to seeing those of you who are going to be able to attend the meetup. And I'm sorry to those of you that can't, but hopefully you can live vicariously through all of us who are there. I'm sure there'll be reports coming out from people on Facebook and other methods throughout the weekend. So until then, I hope this podcast will hold you over, and I hope you'll be back here with us again next week as we go into Mayberry again, because I'll probably try to talk a little bit about the Mayberry meetup. If you didn't know it, the e-bullet is out. So head over and go to imayberry.com and click on the e-bullet link and read the e-bullet. If you didn't get it, sign up so you don't miss it. It'll go right to you. Okay. All right, guys, that's all I've got for you this evening. I hope you have had a good time spending some time here in Mayberry with me. I always have fun. And until next time, I'd love to hear from you. You can give me a call at 888-684-8415, or you can email me at floyd@imayberry.com. Lots of ways you can get in touch with me. Use one of them. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, we'll see you right here on 2 Chairs No Waiting. Good night, everybody.